Good evening. You're tuning into AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheh. Targeted electricity subsidies for the T20 income group will be announced as soon as the Integrated Database or PADU system is completed by the end of the year. Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Minister Nik Nazmi Ahmad said at present, those in the T20 bracket enjoy more subsidies than those in the B40 and M40 income groups based on their consumption.
Ya, kalau satu rumah itu, kalau T20 kita assume 5, 6, 7 aircon, ya, ada dryer, ada banyak kelengkapan-kelengkapan yang lain dan bil elektrik dia 500, 600, 700 ringgit atau lebih. Ya, tidak patutlah mereka dapat subsidi yang lebih berbanding dengan golongan B40 atau M40. Ya, dan kerana dia based on consumption, maka mereka yang enjoy lebih banyak subsidi dari segi ringgit berbanding dengan pengguna B40 dan M40. Dari segi prinsip dia tidak adil.
The government, he added, had made subsidy savings of 5.4 billion ringgit between January 1st and June 30th this year, as the cost had been passed on to consumers in a targeted manner.
The Sabah Assembly has finally passed a law to stop party hopping in the state. All 75 of the 79 assemblymen present gave their full backing for the long-awaited bill tabled by Chief Minister Datuk Seri Haji Nur.
Kita tidak lagi perlu susah hati mengenai adanya adun-adun yang akan berpindah parti atau melompat di masa akan datang di negeri Sabah. Dan ini juga selaras dengan pindaan penembagaan ataupun anti lumpat yang diperkenal di peringkat persekutuan.
The passing of the amendment to the state constitution, however, was overshadowed by the debate on the removal of Article 6 in bracket 7, which was tabled together with the AntiParty hopping bill. 61 lawmakers backed the removal of the clause, which will allow any member of the Legislative Assembly to be appointed Chief Minister if he can command the confidence of the majority of the House. He does not have to be the leader of the political party with the most elected representatives. With the passing of the anti-party hopping bill, any assemblyman who resigns from his party will have to vacate his seat. The same shall apply to an independent assemblyman who is looking to join a political party. Assemblymen crossing over within parties in a coalition would also be considered as hopping and would have to vacate their seats.
There is no need to establish a special ministry to handle Sabah and Sarawak affairs. This is to avoid the possibility of overlapping functions with existing federal ministries like the Sabah and Sarawak Affairs Division or BAS under the Prime Minister's Department.
BAS ini berfungsi sebagai sekretariat dan urus dia untuk kita menyusulkan rundingan di antara Kerajaan Persekutuan Sabah dan Sarawak tanpa perlu mengganggu-gugat fungsi-fungsi menteri di setiap kementerian.
Additionally, Armizan said the federal government's commitment to solving the water supply issues in Sabah would also not interfere with the jurisdiction, rights and interests of the state government.
Tidak, kerana air merupakan salah satu bidang kuasa negeri senarai 2 jadual ke-9 Perlembagaan Persekutuan. Jadi Tawau tidak perlu risau. Kerajaan Persekutuan di bawah pimpinan Tambun akan sentiasa menghormati hak dan juga kepentingan negeri, termasuklah bidang kuasa tambahan kepada Sabah dan Sarawak.
Youth and Sports Minister Hannah Yeoh has reiterated that political instability contributed to Malaysia's poor performance in the recent Phnom Penh SEA Games 2023. She says national athletes were affected due to multiple changes in government within the last 4 years, which disrupted their training ahead of the tournaments.
Salah satu faktor, saya bukan kata semuanya adalah kerana ketidakstabilan politik, tetapi kita mesti memperakui dalam 4 tahun yang lepas, selepas langkah Sheraton, memang ada banyak usaha yang kerajaan telah lakukan pada masa itu untuk membantu ekonomi, untuk membantu pendidikan. Semuanya terganggu kerana ketidakstabilan politik.
Yeoh said allocations for the Podium Athletes Training Program were not included in Budget 2022, prompting the Malaysian Sports Council to rearrange its preparations for several sporting events.
As a result, 220 athletes were unable to continue their training as there was no dedicated budget for SEA Games under the program. Yeo also said that the Malaysian Sports Council had resorted to using its own internal budget to cover training allowances and coaches' salaries to avoid further disruptions. Malaysia placed 7th place in the recent SEA Games with 34 gold, 45 silver and 97 bronze medals, failing to achieve the country's target of 40 gold medals.
The issue of job scams has left hundreds of migrant workers stranded in Malaysia without jobs, despite paying high fees for employment permits. Although the Labour Department has found new jobs for some of these workers, former Klang MP Charles Santiago says this is a long-standing problem. He explains the situation further.
Just in the last month and a half, at least from what I know, there was a group of 200 people in one instance, and then the other one is 71 workers. And it was quite clear that they actually were recruited to work in Malaysia by an agency, by an employer, and they had paid each of them about more or less 20,000 ringgit Malaysia. And they had come to Malaysia looking for a job. But unfortunately, there was no jobs that were available to them, and they were all put in an apartment during the period of Ramadan, and these are all Muslims, without food, without water.
Charles also raised several questions regarding the workers' arrival in Malaysia.
The question is, how did they get the permit to come to Malaysia? Normally, if you are an employer, you will have a job designation. And when they come to Malaysia, you will be taken straight to that particular factory to work. And that is the requirement vis-a-vis the law in terms of the permits. You can only work for the name of the company that is attached to your permit documents. Here, you have people who have been brought here without any, with an employer, with a name, with a particular company, but no jobs. And sometimes this borders actually on trafficking. So therefore, there are two sets of issues, one on forced labor, and then the other is on trafficking. And also, it's actually scamming the country. That means you're using the portal to recruit workers, but actually without jobs. So how did the portal allow you to bring workers into the country? That's the question I think the ministry has to answer.
The Labour Department has vowed to take action against firms and revoke the licenses of recruitment agencies that are misusing government licenses to hire migrant workers. Charles discusses the parties involved in this matter and proposes a possible solution.
It is fair to say the movement of workers from host countries or source countries to Malaysia is organized through a variety of cartels. Cartels who thrive on payment of workers who come to Malaysia. Now, zero recruitment fees is a process where Malaysian employers are willing to pay for the movement of workers from source countries to Malaysia. This syndicates do is they take money from the workers themselves who are coming to Malaysia, and then when they arrive in Malaysia, they take the money from the employers. So they make money on both sides. So much so that a lot of Malaysian companies had to pay back the workers who had already paid the money when they came to Malaysia. So it means companies are being cheated. And this is somehow an organized crime that is going on. And it's been going on for too long.
Charles called for a revamp of the current migrant worker recruitment system in place.
I mean, presently we are using the Foreign Workers Centralized Management System, which is the FWCMS. I think that system has to be replaced. The agency for recruitment has to be a separate agency under the Prime Minister's Department. It should not involve Home Affairs. It should not involve human resources. That is where part of the problem is.
We will go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
It's traumatizing. But I want you to know that we get our babies back.
A missing persons unit.
The kidnapper might still be in the area.
We got a hit. It doesn't get away.
Come on, let's go, 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 go.
Does everything to bring them home.
The girls, where are they?
Show me your hands! For 6 years, I've gone to bed with heartbreak. And I won't let these families go through what I went through.
Alert, missing persons unit. It's always prime time and on demand.
Asking the tough questions is what we do every day here on Astro AWANI. Catch me every weeknights at 10:30 p.m. across all AWANI platforms.
Welcome back. The United Nations is urging Myanmar to open its doors for the distribution of crucial aid to regions devastated by the deadly cyclone Mocha. The cyclone struck the country on May 14th, bringing with it torrential rain and destructive winds that left a trail of devastation in its wake.
Nowhere is the devastating impact of human rights violations more stark than in the mines, in the midst of armed conflict and in the aftermath of natural disasters. And I would like to refer in particular to Cyclone Mocha, which cut a swathe of destruction throughout, in particular, the western parts of Myanmar. And it is the latest, deeply painful manifestation of a man-made disaster, and I emphasize man-made disaster, resulting from a climate event.
The ruling junta has reported a death toll of 148 people, primarily from the persecuted Rohingya minority in the western Rakhine state. The situation remains dire for the estimated 1.6 million people affected by Cyclone Mocha. The United Nations on Tuesday launched an urgent appeal for $333 million in emergency funding to support relief efforts in Myanmar. The government in France plans to relocate homeless people from Paris ahead of the 2024 Olympic Games. The move, however, has faced criticism from regional mayors who will have to accommodate the homeless population in the meantime. Since mid-March, the government has asked officials across France to establish temporary regional accommodation facilities to handle the influx of homeless people, many of whom are migrants from the capital. The government said the move was necessary as it expects a shortage of accommodations due to the Rugby World Cup in September and the Summer Olympics in July and August. Many low-end hotels, which typically provide emergency housing to the homeless, are also planning to rent their rooms at market rates to sports fans and tourists. This initiative is part of President Emmanuel Macron's broader efforts to disperse migrants and others in need of social support from the densely populated Paris region. Many of the city's bridges and parks are currently used as shelter by the homeless, with tents regularly cleared away by security forces. More than 100 firefighters were sent to tackle a major fire from a 7-story building in Sydney, Australia this afternoon. Authorities say the blaze is now under control, following concerns that collapsed parts of the building would spread the fire to neighbouring structures. The blaze in the Surrey Hills area had been upgraded to 10th alarm status, the most severe type of fire. The building, a former hat factory, was reportedly vacant at the time of the fire and no major injuries were recorded. Police said it was too early to determine if the cause of the fire was deliberate. They added that an investigation would be launched as soon as firefighters clear the scene. That wraps up AWANI Tonight. I'm Fana Sheh. Thank you for watching.